Before we get started today, I wanted to direct your attention to d2cplus.co, where we have $1 trials for our private membership community, where you're going to get access to all of our amazing workshops and challenges like the Influencer Flywheel Challenge, the Automation Challenge, and the Standout with Snapchat, our Snapchat challenge that we just finished recording. You'll get a full course library. You'll get access to our private group. You'll get access to these podcasts when they are recorded, where you can ask questions live. You're going to want to join d2cplus.co, and you can do it right now for $1. So you should go there right now, d2cplus.co, join for $1 only, and get all of that awesome D2C goodness. Hello and welcome to the D2C podcast. I'm Eric Dick, along with co-host Kyle Guilfoyle. And today we are lucky to have a combo podcast featuring the co-founder of Jebbit, which is a software tool that creates delightful, data-rich customer experiences, as well as an incredible D2C brand, Pour Moi. And we're going to discuss, spend some time today discussing pre-sales content strategy and how to build the most effective experience before someone clicks. And how to drive data from that fuels the rest of your funnel. So we have Tom Coburn, who is the co-founder and CEO of Jebbit, which is the world's first declared data platform that creates beautiful mobile experiences to capture customer intentions. And we have Ulli Haslacher, the president of Pour Moi Skincare and their director of customer experience, Shannon, who didn't join us today. So we'll just be sticking with Ulli. And Pour Moi is a skincare challenger brand that utilizes unique climate smart technology. And they were recently named one of Time Magazine's best inventions of 2020, which is really cool. I want to welcome you both to the program today. Let's start with you, Tom. So at Pilot House, we're constantly creating pre-sales content that engages the user and improves conversion rates. Can you talk a little bit about how you started with Jebbit and why you built it and what it's become?
First, thank you guys for having myself and Ulli on the podcast. Excited to be here. So my co-founder and I started Jebbit 8 years ago. We were in our dorm room in Boston at the time. We were at Boston College. And really the whole vision behind Jebbit is how can we allow marketers, without needing to touch a line of code, because many of us are not technical, to create beautiful and engaging experiences that consumers will want to engage with, that in a very conversation and natural way get the consumer to answer questions about themselves. I think there's a hybrid between the legacy way of asking consumers questions in a survey, where consumers don't like that, and the world of we obviously want to deliver amazing, valuable experiences to our customers. And with Jebbit, you can really do both, but you can do it much faster and cheaper than if you tried to pay an agency to do it for you, or if you tried to have your own engineers do it. As I'm sure Ulli will tell you, many of the DTC brands we work with they have a million priorities, and resources are always a challenge. And so being able to just do it yourself and do it really quickly are the main value props that, we were predicting would happen and are seeing more and more of it happen as the years go on.
Can you give me a little example of like the old way to ask a question versus the new way? Like more engaging, personalized way?
Right. So to just talk about those two worlds, like traditionally, any type of retail brand, but especially a DC brand, you'd have your website with a bunch of products and maybe some information to educate people, and but you're really relying on the consumer to get to that page and do their own research and figure it out. And then on the other side of the house, you might run surveys from time to time, and you might try to get data directly from your customers. And sure, you might be looking at like what they've bought and the purchase data and behavioral data, but we all know the most valuable data is just asking someone directly. And we know surveys are not engaging. It's hard to get consumers to do it at a high rate. And so what something like Jebbit lets you do is build a quiz that Ulli will talk about the one she has on her website right now. But when a new site visitor gets to the Pour Moi site and doesn't know a ton about Pour Moi, they can go right into this quiz and they can answer a few questions. They can learn a little bit about Pour Moi in the process, and then they can get matched to the right product for them. And so it saves the user time. They're not doing the quiz because they just out of the goodness of their heart want to give Ulli a bunch of data on themselves. They're doing the quiz because they're a busy consumer and they've heard something about Pour Moi to land on this site, and Ulli's able to give them a much better consumer experience that just so happens to ask 3 or 4 questions or 5 questions about them. And now we've captured all this valuable, at Jebbit, we call it declared data, but it's really just first party data where people are answering questions. And that data is incredibly valuable for a lot of different reasons we could dive into if it's helpful.
Well, yeah, I think it'd be awesome to dive right in with Ulli, and love to hear about how you're using the Jebbit platform on
And start with your
with
story as well.
yeah.
Well, we are a very disruptive beauty concept, and we are truly an innovation. We have 2 patents, so it's really a 2 US patent, and actually we just got our Canadian patent. So we applied for this patent worldwide, but the US patent is very, very hard to get for a skincare method, not talking about formulas, because it's kind of like an algorithm. There's not a lot of, value to protect it, because constantly software is evolving. So what you want to protect is the method. And actually I used a method patent out of technology and applied it at beauty for the first time ever, and created an entire white space that I carved out, which is climate, skincare by the climate you live in, and changing it when you travel or when the season changes or you have a unusual weather event. However, this is such a disruptive proposition that we were looking, how can we educate a consumer online? Because it's not like walking into a store and you have a sales rep that says, hey, where do you live? What are you doing? So we needed this kind of communication tool, and that's where Jebbit comes in. Our skincare is personalized to where you live and, what your personal journey is, where you go. Jebbit is also personalized, so you can easily interact with that consumer and match them to the right product. And the reason why that also is so important is because then you don't have returns. The consumer actually gets what they are looking for. And I think that's the biggest advantage of Jebbit, because we all know the best customer service is when your customer doesn't have to call you.
Eric, you're on mute, but I do have I do have a follow-up question there. I'd love to. Would you be able to walk us through your favorite experience that you've created with Jebbit that allows you to really personalize those products to the right person at the right time?
Yes, so for us, the question is easy. Where are you? Is the first question that we have. And then the next one is, what kind of weather do you have? Is it sunny? And then we compare it like what you would wear, so to make it, more visible. We worked very closely with Jebbit of developing the quiz, and that quiz is so effective that even Time Magazine was talking about it on our write-up of being the best invention 2020 for beauty. The quiz was actually mentioned as an important part of why we have been chosen, because it makes a very innovative process so simple to explain and to execute because of what Jebbit does.
And to show it and not just tell about it, right? You could create a landing page that explains this whole thing,
Exactly.
but when you actually have someone, and I like, Tom, the word declared data in a way, because as you're going through this process, you are declaring it in a way that also improves your likelihood to convert in a way, because you're actually sort of, you're the one declaring it as opposed to being told it. I imagine that's part of the psychology.
100%. And Ulli nailed it when she said what it enables you to do is basically have the conversation you would as if you were with this consumer in person, right? If you did own a retail store, or you were just, on the side of the road selling this to someone, this is how you'd sell to them, right? You wouldn't just open up the catalog and say, pick the one you want. You'd say, hey, who are you? Tell me a little bit more about you. What are you looking for? What do you care about? Many of the, obviously Ulli has very specific questions because her product is so innovative. We need to learn about the climate you live in and your activities and things like that. But for many of our customers, it's even simple questions like, what matters to you most? Are you really price conscious, or do you really care about, are you open to spending more because you really care about how something is made or the environmental impact, or different things like that? There's obviously an infinite amount of questions that you could ask. But that's where, and Ulli mentioned this, we really try to work with our customers on understanding, okay, what are the 3 or 4 or 5 most important questions you would ask the first time meeting someone? Because often we see people do try to overthink it too. You often don't need to know 50 things about people. And as you guys probably know, consumers often don't want to tell you 50 things about them, but a lot can happen with just, 3 or 4 or 5 really valuable data points.
Yeah. I think also that the consumer, or we overall don't want to read anymore. It gets all much more visual. If somebody, if you go to an agency today, they're like, Ulli, stop writing. Nobody is reading it. You need to bring in innovative ways to show it. So we're living in a time of change. As a 3-time grandmother, I can just tell you, because I come from direct response. So infomercials, that's what we did in the 80s. And now it is direct to consumer. And, from being the completely cheesy thing, it turned into the cool thing. So, but that's being said, it is also, beside everything being visual and being an experience and people not reading, and don't having the attention span to really read through. Another reason why this is so important, the Jebbit quiz, is that 10 seconds on the internet feels like 10 minutes in real life. So it has a very different proportion to how real life acts. And so Jebbit helps to really make that experience much more efficient. And I think that's important for somebody who owns a e-commerce site, who wants to be successful with an e-commerce site, that they are actually respectful on that consumer experience to cut it down as much as possible, because you otherwise lose the customer anyway.
I love it. And so this particular application it's that idea of directing them to the right purchase for them. That's an absolute no-brainer. I'm wondering about some of the other things that you can do on the other side of it in terms of dynamic marketing with this data once you have it. Can you give us some ideas of some cool applications either you've used, Ulli, or that you've seen, Tom, where you're doing other things besides that?
For sure. Ulli, do you want to take it? Do you want me to start?
I let you start.
Okay, deal. And then there's one other quick thing I want to say before I dive into that, relating to what Ulli said. We're talking about a quiz to drive people to the right product to buy. That's one of many interactive experiences you could build to capitalize on the fact that people have short attention spans, but also try to get them to tell you things about them. Another really popular thing we see people do is build interactive articles on the Jebbit platform. So they'll take a blog post, long form blog post with a bunch of content, and they'll break it up and ask you questions. And based on how you answer the questions, they'll take you down different paths in the blog post. So maybe it's, hey, how much do you know about how the climate impacts your skin? And if you say a lot, well, we can skip over the whole 2 intro paragraphs. But if you say you don't know a lot and we ask you how much time you have, oh, you have 2 minutes, here's what you need to know. It's just another great way to engage your consumer in a conversational way that's very much how Ulli would talk to someone in person if she met them. But anyways, to directly answer your question. So whether you're doing a quiz or you're doing an interactive article or a trivia or any of the other things, you get people to answer these questions, and now you have this data. Now things get really interesting with what you can actually do with the data. I know Ulli talks a lot about the increase in conversions and average order value she sees from the quiz in the moment, but now you've had X thousands of people go through and answer these questions. You could use that data to personalize emails to them. You could use that data to go create a custom audience on Facebook, and whether you want to go retarget them or you want to go, reach new people using lookalike models, you could go do that. But it's based on that self-declared data, not third-party data or other types of data. You might use that data to just personalize the website experience when people come back next. I think the key is, as the marketer, as the D2C brand, once you get the data, it's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. Not to dive into all the weeds of the Jebbit platform, but we're integrated with all the major marketing automation platforms and email service providers that any D2C brand might be using. So, the Jebbit experiences are a valuable way to collect the data, but you're really just scratching the surface of the value you can get if you're only looking at the experience itself.
Very cool. Ulli, you mentioned earlier a really cool term about creating white space. And so we've worked with a few skincare brands on the Pilot House side, and it's not an easy vertical. It is one of the hardest. It's one of the most competitive verticals in terms of standing out. So I'd just like to hear you talk a little bit more about that white space idea. And the idea that I'm interested in also as it relates to pre-sales content is how important that customer experience is in the white space world. It's like if you're in that white space and if you're not coming up with an innovative way to explain that to people, you're going to put yourself behind the 8 ball. So if you're in the white space, you definitely need to have these really engaging customer experiences, I would say.
Yeah. Well, skincare and beauty overall is one of the most crowded place that is out there. It's a huge opportunity because it's kind of like food or a download. You use it every day. This is the Super Bowl of consumption. So everybody wants to get in there because of the reoccurring return that you have in their business. Everything that you use every day, and especially anti-aging skincare, we know from what happened 2004 that it is recession proof. Unfortunately, women would take the kids out of the private school but didn't give up their moisturizer. So choices that been made that we've seen in the last 20 years. We've seen 2004 that were amazing for marketers, that we are like, skincare is the way to go. And that's why so much money has been invested in anti-aging skincare. I have to say, so as a marketer, that was always, I come a lot from product development, but, I have been finding new angles for my customers because we were, in the infomercial business, and it was all about finding a new angle of how you go on QVC or how you, sell something. Innovation, didn't really, I wouldn't say comes out right off DRTV, but it had a lot of innovative angles to it and then extended to the internet. But, when I got as a child, I traveled a lot around the world with my father, and he was in powder coating. I don't know if you're familiar with powder coating, but powder coating is really how paint withstands outside the elements. And how you apply this powder coating is different in different surface, in different climates. So I was 6 years old, and I already understood that you treat a surface according to the climate you are in. Slash forward, I'm in my 40s, and I'm working with Olivia Newton-John on breast cancer, and we are founding a company together, and we're traveling the world. We're in different climates. And, 2003, I think, was the moment where breast cancer used to be the #1 self-diagnosed disease for women because you find a lump, when skin cancer took it over, and it was actually now skin cancer becoming the #1 self-diagnosed disease. And so Olivia, we started to do with, a nonprofit organization or with hospitals like the Cedars-Sinai or NYU, we started to do projects together with skin cancer. And so at this time, the first research was coming out. What breaks down the first defense, our most outer layers of skin, what's actually happening? And the first research showed, very surprisingly, that the outer layer of the skin that are located outside the body actually function completely different than the inside of your skin. Then they started to say, oh, we found a new organ. I don't know if you remember when all that publicity came out about part of the skin is a new organ. Anyway, all of it, led to more research. But at that moment, when I started to read that research, came back to, from my dad, what I learned when we lived in Israel, when we lived in, Denmark, in the polar climate, and, for the powder coating, that the skin is just the surface. And we are learning that that surface made out of dead skin cells is actually biochemically alive and 100% tied to the climate. So, flash forward now, 2020 being the invention of the year with Time Magazine. Now this, when you get data back in medical research, and, it's kind of like what Tom is talking about, with declared data as well. So that's how it works with medical research too. You look at this and you get such amazing information back. So you find a bigger one. So today there is actually major research that backs up that your skin is changing in different climates. The outer layer works with the climate. And the truth is, this is how skin works. And guess what? When I went for a patent application, and I just went it out to see what's out there, in 150 years, not just in the United States, but worldwide, the word climate was never mentioned in a patent ever. Because lawyers, I was married to a lawyer, they just copy and paste. So they are not innovative. A lawyer is not innovative by any way or shape. They just cover everything that's already covered before. So climate was never mentioned, and at that moment I knew I found a white space. And so we spent millions of dollars on these patents. And that's how it is. And now, the question was always, because we just got the first patent in November 2019. So I had to launch that brand of mine during a pandemic, no commercial, no Facebook ads, nothing. We are really growing by word of mouth, and and we are growing. We're one of the fast growing brand accordingly to Shopify. So
amazing.
we have thousands of new customers every month online because it works. We have no returns. We are able, because of Jebbit. Jebbit enabled us to, explain this in 15 seconds is our. I think it's a 15-second quiz we have.
That's what I'm blown away by, is that you could talk about skincare. I would imagine you could fill a book with what you know about skincare, right? But you have 10 seconds to impart that to someone and make them understand kind of a new paradigm. So it's pretty amazing that you've been able to accomplish this. So one of the other questions I had for Tom too was just, we at Pilot House, we run a lot of ads for everything that we do. Are these experiences organic, or are these being driven to from ads directly? And what does that actually look like on the ad side?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. So when we were thinking about building Jebbit since day one, we intentionally wanted to build it in a way where we're just the software to create the experience. And then we want you as the marketer to be able to put it anywhere your consumers are. So, Ulli, for example, if you go to the Pour Moi website, you'll see the quiz embedded right there on the homepage. Many of our brands will take a Jebbit experience and they'll have Facebook ads drive right into the experience, or they might embed the experience in an app, or they might email the experience out. We've had professional sports teams have the experience pop up while you're watching a live game, where you type in a URL and it loads the experience. We've had QR codes on packages. Literally anywhere you could have someone click a link, scan a QR code, anything, you could deploy an interactive experience. And so the flexibility is really there to be wherever your consumers are.
I love it. We've been talking a lot about market segmentation and just what it really means to have dynamic web experiences. I think there's a lot of people pay lip service to that as an idea by populating someone's name in some field in an email or something potentially, but we're realizing more and more that these truly engaging experiences, whether it's AR, VR product demonstrations, which is something I hear just dominating, or these kinds of experiences, like this is e-commerce, whatever we are, 4.0 now. You need to have these kinds of edges and these kinds of experiences.
I think if you're a consumer, once you've gone to Ulli's site and you've had such a helpful consultative experience, then if you start going to a bunch of other sites and you're not getting that, it starts to become more of the standard, right? You're going to start to say, wow, that was such an easy experience with Pour Moi. And, it just becomes another differentiator, right? And obviously Ulli's biggest differentiator is the patent and the amazing product that she's developed. But I think, she would admit in a competitive market, every extra differentiator you can get obviously helps.
Yeah, and it's very important with an innovative process was how do we let the consumer know what is the right product, because people don't understand climate really very well. And it made it so simple. And as I said, we really are, if you look at I think the benchmark in DR to consumer for skincare, you guys probably know it better, but the average is about 28% return, because a lot of people just buy skincare with already the intention to return it. So they just wanted to see it, smell it, look at it, and then they return it because, the return process is so easy. We have less than 1% return year to date with over 12,000 customers that regularly buy. So, and that speaks for the patent that if they believe that climate has something to do with skin, they can only buy from us. They cannot return it and buy it somewhere else. But it also has to do that they know exactly that they buy the right product from the start, and that's Jebbit. And then again, our customer service is tiny, 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 tiny. It's mostly people calling us up and say how much they love it. So that's also, as we know, it's a killer to a DR side if customer service goes up, if chargebacks goes up, if returns goes up. Doesn't matter if you have 1 million sales, if you have 1,000,002 returns. So it's just smart business to beside the experience and the data and everything else, it's also smart business. It's a must-have, I would say.
I sorry, like to charge forward here again, but I think we're always looking for business solutions that are additive. We keep bringing up this idea of the whole beast. And so when you find a solution that works on multiple fronts, I think that's that's a win and at the same time when it supports your company's mission of reducing waste, for instance. I know that's something that people really think of quite a bit in the e-commerce world. And so just any kind of model that addresses that, I think, is something that people can really get behind.
Yeah, and with Jebbit, you can actually grow into the different stages of your company. So we are a startup, so it's all about getting the sales and getting the sales as good as possible, so no returns and things. So I'm sure in 2 years, because we're really high growth, at that moment, we want to have that Chris do something else, learn about what products do they want. A business moves into different stages. The good thing is with Jebbit, you can just, as Tom was explaining, there's so many applications to it. So you evolve too with the quizzes because you can use it in so many different ways.
Very interesting.
So cool. I'm actually super curious because you guys are very innovative in that it's a climate focused skincare product, and as you mentioned, no one does that. But you're also innovative in that you create very little waste. Would you tell us a bit about
responsibility as a climate specific, the world first, to make people understand that we have to make a change. And I want to just say one thing, Carl, because I never get a chance to say this. Young people understand that the planet, or that life as we know on the planet, is in trouble. Old people like me don't understand it. The problem is, learn an old dog a new trick, I think is the saying, is the most complicated saying. Here's the problem. If the old people doesn't come around, we might not gonna make it. The way of how we want to have our great-grandchildren have this world, or your children have this world. So one thing, what is the secret mission behind Pour Moi is because our consumer that we have is literally between 40 and 70. We really getting this, like this older ladies like me. And I'm starting to educate them with my emails of telling them small changes, because here's another thing you might not know. In the 80s, we spent tens of millions of dollars in advertising, trying to tell the consumer, smoking, you need to stop smoking because your health, cancer, heart diseases, everything else. And the data came back that hardly anybody stopped smoking. Then a very, very small study was done with like 25 participants that showed that smoking causes wrinkles. And boom, everybody stopped smoking. So this is it. But there's a lot of truths about it. Changing behavior is extremely difficult for old people. So you need to give them a reason. Beauty is an unbelievable way to ask them to make that change. And they will not make it. You can advertise and make horror scenarios, and I don't think they're gonna get it, but they get it through beauty. So this is the secret mission of Pour Moi. We are educating a little bit, not with, throwing them over the head, but just a little thing about, we don't have to package everything. You don't have to need a straw. You can drink without a straw. You're not a baby. So things like that, in a fun way, and the consumer reacts so nicely to it. So that's our underlying thing, Kyle, just to say.
I like it.
No, it's very powerful. I'm curious how, just the mechanics, the specifics behind how it is creating less waste. Are they refillable containers, or what does that declaring?
They're declaring that they want this product.
It's not refillable containers because you can't, technology is not here yet. It would be too much contamination. And that's why, you know, a lot of things why people break out more than ever before. We have actually an epidemic of adult acne that didn't exist before, is because of bacteria in the products. That's just, it's the truth. Everybody in the industry knows it. So you know, this is, Pour Moi is about not breaking out anymore. It's about not getting wrinkles. It's about healthy skin, resilient skin to the climate. So we are, you know, all our paper is biodegradable. We are now having a new innovative way of how to fold, so we don't have to glue anymore. Because when you glue a box, and if it's biodegradable, it's not biodegradable anymore, because now you just use glue. See, it's a lot of things that people don't understand. So you can, you know, we are educating of, you know, doing this. We're looking in the new technology of packaging, but unfortunately there is so much greenwashing and whitewashing, which is not really true. And I don't want to get into just because the marketing tells you, and we know already it's not a solution. So we just changed over, you know, every packaging will tell you now they are recyclable packaging. I can tell you not one recycle factory in North America will actually recycle them. They all go to the landfill because they are made out of mixed of plastic, or they are, you know, a recyclable number 6 and 7. And at this point, only 1 and 2 will be recycled. So there's a lot of things that the consumer thinks just because it says it's recyclable, it will be recycled. We all know will never be recycled. So we are looking for real true things that are, we don't want to lie to the consumer and make them believe this is like a, you know, mirror shedding, you know, oh, we are recycling the packaging, when we know as a fact, it won't ever be recycled.
Yeah. You've got to make things that align with the audience, but also still that allow you to be, you know, to scale your greater mission.
Exactly.
You know, because at scale you'll have more impact in all the ways that you want to.
Yeah, I think there is a real good way to do it, and technology is now racing to get this all done. So we are starting to go back to glass of some things, but not too much, because glass, you know, the way. So I think, give it 5 years and there will be amazing technology available to actually reuse containers and things like that. But as of today, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. You know, Tom, if people want to get in touch with Jebbit right now, what do you recommend? You want to give an email? You want to just drive them to the site?
Sure. I'm Tom at Jebbit.com. They can email me and I can get them connected to the right people on our team. Or they obviously can just go to our website, Jebbit.com too.
Nice. And just walk through what an initial engagement would look like with Jebbit. You'd be basically like, take the consult, help them come up with those core questions, and then it's a pretty quick process of getting it in.
Yeah, we have different ways to work with us. We have a free version that anyone can sign up for and just build their own quiz. It uses our simple builder. So it's a builder that strips away a lot of the creative capabilities, but makes it really easy to build. And then we have a more advanced version. That's how we started working with Ulli, where you actually get a customer success rep at Jebbit, and they'll actually help you build out the quiz and help you optimize the data and everything like that. But yeah, so we're trying to build this in a way where anyone can get started, no matter how big their business is or how much budget they have. But we have people all the time that sign up and launch their quiz on the first day of signing up. This is not I think you said simple earlier, like we are trying to have a very simple and effective strategy. So this does not need to be a thing that you spend months implementing or anything like that. Of course, if you want to talk to us and get advice, you know, it's probably a week or 2 on average that we go back and forth and we have a couple calls, and then you're live with your quiz or your interactive article or whatever it might be. And then you can just keep using it and build more experiences from there.
I love it. So people go to Jebbit.com and build a free funnel to start and send it to us. Send it to us at direct-to-consumer.com. We'll take a look at it. We'd love to see some examples. And to get started free, I think is a really great way to get people into this new white space that you're building on the, before the click.
Absolutely.
Very nice. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on today. And thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to our attendees. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, guys.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, Ulli.